Welcome to Creative Crafts. Today I'm going to show you how to make a paper mache pinata. In particular, we're going to make a Angry Bird pinata. And I'll just show you step by step to get to this point here. So with these crafts, I focus on trying to keep the items all something that you have within the house. So with paper mache pinatas, we start with a balloon, any size balloon. You can blow it as big or as small as you want it. And then for the paper mache, you need either newspaper or scrap strips of paper. I prefer scrap strips of paper because it is a little bit stronger and easier to hit through. Newspaper, when you have a pinata, it's going to be more flexible and harder to actually break. And then for the paste, we use 2 cups water, 1 cup flour, and a little bit of salt for preservative to make sure it doesn't mold on you. So whenever you're using the paste, you want to make sure that you constantly mix it because the flour will settle to the bottom. Now, when putting the strips of paper onto the balloon, you want to make sure that that you do at least 2 layers. The easiest way to do that is to place 1 layer straight across, and then the second layer you can flip right up down, and that way you'll be able to tell if you've gotten all the sides. Now, as you're doing this, as you can see, it becomes top heavy. So you want to make sure you do 1 strip one side, 1 strip the other side, and near the bottom you're going to have to hold it while putting the strips around the bottom. I'm using a used yogurt cup to balance my balloon. It's the easiest thing, and then you can just leave it to dry on there once it's completely covered. It can take up to 2 days to dry completely, depending on how many layers and how much of the paste you used. That's why you can see I use a tray, because it is very messy. At least put down newspaper if you don't have a tray or something to do it in. So the next step, once you have that, is you'll have the empty shell. You just pop the balloon out of it. Once the balloon's popped, because we want to do a 3D realistic Angry Bird, we need to focus on getting the feather and the beak. So in just a moment I'll show you that. Okay, so we're going to do the feather and the beak now. This is probably the only part of the whole process where you're going to have something that you probably need to buy from a craft store or the dollar store, and that's just a regular pipe cleaner like this. Colorful or not, doesn't matter, it's going to be covered in paper mache. So to get it into our pinata, it's best just use a pen to poke a hole. See, this one's actually kind of a little bit flexible, so you want to make sure that you don't get too big of a hole. So just hold it up from underneath and you poke that hole. So you only want about the size of the tip of the pen, and then you want it about 2-3 inches apart. See, that goes too big. We'll move down here. Gotta be careful because that was right along the line of where one of the papers split. So, all right. So now that we have 2 small holes, you just feed it through the holes. And then what you do is you put your hand inside and you bend it to kind of hold it in place. And then to get the top, the first part of the feather, or as we're trying to make it look like 2 feathers, so to get the first feather, just kind of, there we go. Just want to bend it up, bring it down a little bit, bend it back, and there you have your 2 feathers. Pretty simple. Keeping it straight is another story. So you want it approximately in the middle of your bird's face. You know, obviously we're not professionals. Not a big deal if it doesn't look right. Now for the beaks, myself, I've used the bottom of an eggshell carton because, again, easy to have around the house, and you don't necessarily want a pointy beak if you have small children around. So here we go. With the beak, you don't have to tape it down or anything because the paper mache will actually hold it in place. So I'll go ahead and show you that here. So just, again, wet the paper. You want to center it with the feather there. And just do a couple of strips to hold it in place. that. See, no taping required. And then from here, you just cover it until it's covered completely. And you know it's not going to fall off. And be careful when you're doing this, because if you cut the papers in bunches like I did here, they will stick together. So, and it might make it a little more difficult for the paste to go through multiple layers of paper at the same time, in which case it's not going to stick properly, and then you'll have issues after it dries where it's flaking apart, and you don't want that. So there's the bake turned on, or put on. And you don't want too much paper mache on there, because the more that you use, the softer the dried paper mache around it is going to become, and then you can have a problem where the actual head starts to deform because you've used too much paper mache. And then same thing for the top here. We're just going to try the best to keep the shape. It's alright if it goes in a little bit. We just want to cover that area so that it looks like it has feathers. Now, one thing to remember too is that with doing the feather, the corner, getting the curves on the feather is pretty hard. So if you, you know, if you have a couple edges of the paper sticking out, you know, don't worry too much. It's not that big of a deal. If you're a perfectionist, you want to make sure that all the edges are sticking out. You may have a hard time. Or you can try using thinner strips than what I'm using, such as using a strip that's this thin. And as you can see there, with the help of my little assistant, just put that there. This is actually what it looks like after it's dried. So at this point, really all you need to do is choose a color and paint it, and you'll end up with this. Now, you can choose to fill it before or after you paint. Here I've chosen to paint it first, but that's just more for your, so you can see what it looks like. But what you would do is you would just fill it with whatever it is you want to put in there, and then you would take the paper mache and you paper mache over this hole. And you will have to let it sit like this to dry. And then once it's dry, then you can paint the whole thing. Now, there are many things that you can use the pinatas for. Myself, I'm making these smaller ones to use instead of having goodie bags for my son's party. A lot of work, but I think it will be really worth it once the kids go and take them home and have to smash them open. You can do this with many different characters. I've done a Hello Kitty one. You could do, you know, any characters that your children know, cartoon characters from TV. Yes, there's another one. So, if you're interested in having me do any others, you can just post straight to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/easycreativecrafts, or you can email me at creativecrafts858@gmail.com, and I can make up a video to show you how to turn one of these into whatever character you would like. And keep your eye open, because I have many more crafts, especially Angry Birds at the moment, that I'll be posting videos and pictures upon. Thank you.